Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to another design live stream. We've got three of us designers here, and we are doing just an open Q&A. I've got some gameplay in the background just for some extra things going on, and feel free to ask us questions in the chat. I am Calamity. I work on the what have I done? I did a lot of the wall room mobs, so some of the bosses for that. I worked on the library gauntlet as well, so some more content and combat things, and continuing to work on more of that in the future. And we have two more people here.
Ben, did you want to go? Oh wait, I guess
introduce yourselves.
Alphabetically, I could go.
I'll go next.
Okay, good.
We'll move up in terms of hierarchy, seniority. So,
Okay.
I am Ratbeard, the design lead. Hello. I was just in the background letting Cam know that I'm not sure if you guys can see us yet.
I think they can.
We're just on the bottom of the screen.
I'm gonna refresh. There we go. I needed to refresh the Twitch stream, so there it is.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Go ahead, Artie.
Yeah, Artie Rogers, game director here at KingsIsle. Excited to see what Calamity has to say.
We have a lot of things to say. It's just a question of whether it's relevant. Always talk about anything.
That's true.
Our first question in the chat is, do you guys like cheese?
Well, yeah, Jeff Tony has the cheese day every week.
But our cheese day every week, every month. Cheese day, first Thursday.
Is it every month?
It's every month.
Right, every month. And yeah, he's been doing that for over a decade, I think.
Yep.
It's awesome.
I have cheese almost every breakfast. Now that I think about it, I like cheese. At the moment, I'm eating cashews, however.
So yeah, there you go.
I feel so much more secure knowing the devs like cheese. Seems we have some echoey audio, so hopefully that.
At the moment, I'm eating cashew.
Figured out. I got pulled before I could do the quest. Yeah, I'm playing Big Ben because of content that is secular and easy to run through, and we've been talking a lot about dungeons lately, and types of dungeon content that people enjoy and prefer, and so here is an Arc 1 dungeon that is very specific, and people usually either love or hate it based on the format of it. The worst dungeon in the game, Court says.
I like this question.
Big Ben.
Artie, how hard is it to design a game?
Wait, who asked that?
That is Sanrio 333. No. Sanrio 333. I'll start by saying it's easier to design a game from scratch than it is to design a game on top of another game. That's certain.
Yeah, they have different challenges. I mean, think about a game as creating a watch, and you're designing the watch, but you're not making any of the gears or the springs or the casing or anything, but you're instructing other people to. And then you are putting the pieces together. And so you're trying to plan every gear, spring, hand, screw, everything to present a watch that tells time and looks good. So it's complicated. It's difficult. Doing what I described is easier because you're just dealing with time. With a game, you're dealing with people. It can be really, really difficult to kind of manage emotions of people, likes and dislikes and things like that. So it's pretty tricky. It's a challenge, but it's fun.
Your analogies are way nicer than mine.
What's yours?
Oh, never mind. Yours is good. I like watchmaking.
Well, because when new designers join the group, design ends up being kind of the center point of everything, because programmers are looking for us to describe what to program. Artists are looking for us to describe what art to create. And then we've got to make sure all those things kind of work together. And then, story helps with that too. The emotional side of it. The story is really important component of it. So anyway, it's difficult. But yeah, challenging. Let's see, anyway. This is Calamity's stream, so I will only answer questions directed to me by Calamity.
You're allowed to pick anything you want from the chat.
No, I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to. I'll just let people ask questions and I'll try to answer them.
Well, I liked another one of the questions, which you guys are going to have more to pull from. I was trying to think of what my answer for it was, but what's the hardest thing you've ever had to design?
I don't know. Hard's a weird word. Hard's a weird word, right? Because there's different challenges, and different things are are challenging in different ways. Like when I was working on Elder Scrolls Online, I was trying to build a reusable state machine that would allow NPCs to kind of provide that living world type of thing that Elder Scrolls is known for, and the online game didn't really have natural support for. And so trying to figure that out was tricky, but that was kind of challenging. And then I did a lot of different things like tech trickery in Elder Scrolls, which was challenging. But yeah, I guess the most challenging thing probably that Ben and I were working on was Worgen stuff. Because again, it becomes this strange thing where it's like, you get a lot of praise for the game you made. You have a lot of people who are passionately in support of it. Your certain metrics are performing appropriately, but then there's something missing, right? Like as we're kind of tracking success of it, something just wasn't right. And so that becomes the hardest thing to try to figure out what's missing. So, I mean, we liked the game. We liked everything about it, really. And there were a lot of people who did. But something was wrong. And, that's the worst, I think. I guess that would be the most challenging thing in general, is solutions are easy, problems are hard. It's hard to succinctly define the problem to solve. Solutions are much easier to come by. Because it's such a complicated array of systems and emotions that clearly identifying the problem becomes that's challenging.
My answer is less of a design, like the design itself was hard, but more the limitations around the design was hard. Similar to your first response, Artie, is the job that I worked before this one, I think for the course of the year that I worked with them, we changed engines about 2 different times and would reset our goals pretty often. And so we were working with a lot of limitations in terms of what we could do to build up the content at the time, because it's like you have a game that used to have a framework of combat and interactions and quest structure and all these things, and then because we switched engines, it took time for that tech to be built up again, but we had to produce content because it was an MMO, and so we needed to get content out there, but didn't really have the tech, the framework at the time to work with to build these quests. And so it was, how do you make something interesting when you don't really have a whole lot of gameplay to work with? That was quite the challenge.
Yeah, and that's why we try to design things as like Lego pieces, because then each new Lego piece enables someone to create different experiences by how they combine the pieces. But then that does mean there's got to be a lot of understanding of the structural relationship between each piece. Let's see, another challenging thing. Well, because we're a Wiz stream, I'll mention the Wiz thing that was challenging. So we had finished, we had gone live and we were finishing Dragonspire, and Ely, the owner, and Todd were asking for our 12-month roadmap, development roadmap. So Ray and I were kind of putting that together, and we put it together and kind of presented it to them. And we had a sister project at the time, and they said, okay, I see your 12-month roadmap. You've got 4 months to finish it. And meanwhile, double your team size. And the clock starts now. So that was challenging. But one of the things that I try to do when designing content or systems is to create what I call perforation points within the design, so that it can grow or shrink based on the realities of the schedule. And so that's how I built Grizzleheim. So at the time it was like Grizzleheim and crafting and some other major systems, and it was just really challenging because we over the previous 2 years or whatever, we had created a workable content pipeline, and all of a sudden we were, the bottlenecks were different, because all of a sudden we had twice as many environment artists as we used to. And so then Jeff, Tony, and I became the major bottlenecks, and we had to try to reimagine our workflow in order to accommodate that throughput, in order to meet the goals. The same time it was, I expect higher ups to ask the impossible, and then it's my responsibility to do my best to accomplish it. And I can't remember the quote. It was like, yeah, if you don't know what's possible unless you attempt the impossible. So we were able to pull it off, and I think it was good. It was also like Grizzleheim was a departure from how Arc 1 zones were originally designed and created and implemented, because it went from the piece set and combination of piece set and custom pieces to all custom. And so, but that was cool too, and I think one of the ways that we made it more efficient was I used to model out the environments in Max myself, and then use a lightweight client, I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, to run around it. And so that's how, and then I would deliver that to the artists. But so we decided to cut that out of the process, and I just did, I would have reference pictures, and then I would just do environment top downs on graph paper as a way to try to speed things up. So, but it worked. It was cool.
Currently, the conversation in chat is about spellements.
Oh, yeah.
Spellement grind.
They love them. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
What? I mean, yeah.
I am doing my best to sort of tackle what should be easy questions in the chat as we go along. But Kylie Bloom asked, "What was the original purpose of spellements?" And I put it took me a second to remember the last piece, the most important piece first. I didn't mention it last. We had lore packs for a long time, and a lot of players fell into what Artie calls the probabilistic void, which is you keep opening packs and opening packs and opening packs, and if you didn't get your lore spell, that was a bad experience for players. So the first reason for the spellements was to allow us to give, it almost was a pity system. Giving spellements in every pack to players as they were opening packs for lore spells meant that you would definitively get your spell unlock at some point, right? So that was the first thing we were trying to solve, was to make sure that players who were trying to get their spell from packs would get it, right? at a pretty predefined time. Now, we didn't take out the possibility of getting it early. We left the jackpot in there. In fact, I had a lot of fun. Players would open packs and they would post on Twitter, "Hey, I got 30 spellements," and I'd always reply back, "Jackpot," because that was the jackpot, right? Very close to getting your spell very early. It was, I think 35 is the first unlock and 30 was the jackpot. So the first reason was essentially a pity system for unlocking lower spells faster than just opening packs for who knows however long it might take. But once we had sort of decided on the need for this thing, the second question was, well, what does spellements really do? And the answer is it's an additional power progression or character progression for your character besides just gear, which is good. And with a path A, path B, it gave the player some choices and some agency. So that's the answer. And then, of course, the reply came back, well, how, isn't it really just about the money? And to which I replied, well, spellements are free. They're free, right? So they're in the game and you can get them through a variety of sources for. And the pressure that players feel to max out their spellements of all their spells, and in some cases, all their spells on all their characters, or even all the spells for all the schools on every single character. If you feel highly pressured to go all the way to tier 5 and it's giving you a bad experience, then we can fix that. We won't release all the tiers at the same time, right? So that'll take the time pressure off you to max your spells out all at once. And I can only speak for myself. I'll let Artie comment on it, but speaking for myself, that's my preferred solution. We won't give you tier 5 anymore, right? Because you feel pressured, unhappy, have to go and spend however long it takes you to do this in a free way to get this spell maxed. I would just as soon say, okay, well, we'll give you tier 2. And then, in 3 months, we'll give you tier 3. 3 months later, tier 4, tier 5. So we'll roll them out slower so that you don't have this immediate pressure to max everything out. And, speaking again for myself, that should make our intentions pretty clear. We want you to max out your spells. We want you to feel like there's something additional for you to chase, especially since spells are always useful across all levels, right? So no matter what level you are, there's something interesting to maxing out your spells. We want you to have, but we don't want to give you an unhappy experience.
So I know folks kind of probably look at us and think of Face of KingsIsle holistically, like, hey, it's KingsIsle, there they are, right? But we deal with the things that are under our charge, and Crown Shop is not that. Right? We don't deal with the Crown Shop. That's Decius and the product team. They deal with the Crown Shop. We're trying to create a game experience, like have been mentioned, reward loops, progression systems, things like that. And part of the thing with the spellment system and reworking of the gear, frankly, was to address concerns from some portions of the community that they had no desire, they had no rewards that they felt they wanted to pursue. They're looking for things to do, and they wanted rewards they wanted in order to engage with it. Now, of course, we have to build a system we attempted to build a system that accommodated various degrees of tolerance of pursuit, right? Like not everybody plays the same amount of time every day or every week or every month or whatever, so it becomes sort of a fuzzy target. And so what we wanted to do is provide, depth for those who like to engage more, and then try to get the most significant benefit early. So going from tier 1 to tier 2 is really kind of a Boolean advancement for path Bs, that is. All of a sudden you go, your spell does this, and now it adds this extra effect. But then as you move forward, it gets increasingly more powerful as you go. But again, it's because some people want that. Some people like that. Like there's a lot of chatter in the community and a lot of maps being made about optimizing spellman acquisition and all these different things. And those are the people that kind of enjoy doing that kind of thing, optimizing acquisition for themselves. And so we were trying to make it so that it didn't apply. There wasn't a great amount of pressure on the general population to max out their spellments, but they can still pursue it as a way to increase that power if they want to. And then it does it, it's not zero, it's something. So, but so that's what, I've been talking to the community somewhat about, like, is it okay for a system or a game content to be created for a group that you may not be a part of? Is that okay for that to happen? And then is the opposite okay? Is it okay for us to create something for you and not for them? And then can both of these groups peacefully coexist with that happening? So, like, is it okay that the spellment system is there? Is it okay for the people who have more time than money to have a variety of acquisition options? Is it okay for the people that have more money than time to have an option to kind of accelerate their acquisition because they just don't have the same amount of time? Are these options okay for these things to all coexist or not? And we're kind of just exploring that question. And that's a difficult one, talking about challenges of game design and game development things, and that's part of it. Working with a community of, a lot of people. How can we be tailoring portions of the game for certain folks and not necessarily ruin it for the people that it's not intended for? Like Emma asked a question about the Nightmare Dungeon and the difference between the challenge version and the standard version. And yeah, I feel like we made a mistake. So, I think we made a mistake. I really enjoyed the challenge version. A lot of people did. When we first put it out, there wasn't a lot of criticisms of the challenge dungeon. It was challenging. We liked it internally. I find it a lot of fun. And I think for the target that the challenge dungeon was intended for, I think those people enjoyed it. The mistake was misinterpreting the requests from the standard people and thinking that what we needed to do is just make adjustments to the Nightmare Dungeon to make it standard. Where what we should have done is kind of revisited the experience for the intended target. Like, the standard people don't necessarily want new challenges that way, right? They may like something like lighter puzzles or challenging, maybe challenging bosses, but maybe not ones that are have so many cheats to them and things like that. And so, but again, that was just sort of creating something for one group, creating something for another group, and trying to make sure that those things kind of those two groups can peacefully coexist, where one doesn't hate on the other because they happen to get something. So anyway, man, I've been rambling today. I'm a rambling rose today.
Yeah, I know. I'm not even done letting you ramble either. But I'm going to defer back to Calamity and see if there's anything she wants to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I had too much coffee.
In the chat.
What's that?
There are plenty of questions and good things to talk about in the chat. So,
All right.
Yeah, I was interested in the digging into the coming off of what you were talking about with the Nightmare Dungeon of the style of standard content, because I believe from all the feedback that we've seen, it's less about the actual level of difficulty and more about the style of difficulty that we give them. Like you had mentioned for cheats, and the amount, and we're really trying to nail down where is the tolerance line in terms of that. How much can we push players in terms of the strategies that they're used to and in what ways, and the tools that they have available. Like, one of the questions that has come up coming off of the standard dungeon, but also sounds like that's coming from some elements in the world as well, Is it okay for standard to require you to go search for other tools? For example, treasure cards. Like, if you need a specific card that is not available to, if the tool that you need to find the solution to that boss is not available for your school, is that okay? The fact that you have to go out and find a treasure card or maybe train a different spell in order to solve that puzzle, you're required to engage in a different system than just going through the game blindly. You have to go out to the bazaar or something and engage in that system in order to find the solution set. And it seems like there hasn't been a full agreement on that prior, but since we're looking at this kind of nailing down where the difficulty tolerance line lies, like for the puzzles in Standard Nightmare, is level of difficulty in terms of cerebral versus more physical, and real-time puzzles versus can take as long as you need to figure out the questions. It seems like there is an accessible framework that we can get by continuing to trial and error, ask these questions, get feedback from players in terms of what style of difficulty we can offer in different types of content.
Yeah, I think so. Just in talking to some of the community, internally and externally, about that, is one thing is I think there's a question of frequency of cheating bosses. So that's one thing, versus bosses that are simply tougher. Right? There's not a puzzle to them. The other thing we talked about, which is part of what Advance is attempting to do with the magic wheel and things, is attempting to give the players a framework by which they can begin to diagnose the puzzle before they go into it. It's not a trial and error situation. And then the system's trying to provide some feedback as to how can you prepare to and adjust to the puzzle that you're kind of facing. So to me, the problem with the treasure card, or the possible problem with any sort of treasure card type requirement, is just how does the player know? Even if they know what treasure card to get, how do they know how to get it? Like, is it accessible in the world that they're in? Do they have to go somewhere else? How would they know to do that? Right? Are we satisfied with requiring people to go to the internet to find out? I mean, that's not exactly the experience that I like in games generally. I mean, I don't mind going there occasionally, but when I'm faced with a primary playthrough experience, I would prefer there be clues and things and the answers and the tools I need to solve the problem are available to me in proximity of the puzzle. Don't force me to go to the bazaar, which is going to be, it may be there or not. And how would I know? And how do I know how to get it elsewhere? So that's kind of what frustrates me sometimes with some of the bosses, is just how am I supposed to diagnose this problem? Just by trial and error, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And how satisfying is that versus trying to give players information to diagnose the encounter before they're in it. So I don't think necessarily that people, and part of it is like, it's also like what we see some of the complaints about the card text. I don't necessarily think anybody necessarily is saying that the card itself and what it does is too complicated. They just can't read the hieroglyphics. It's not that it's too hard, but now that we have the system, right, they don't have to go anywhere to figure it out. They just advanced card inspect and they can read it now. Whereas before they couldn't read it. So to me, it's kind of like a different example of a similar thing, like giving players in context the information they need to understand what's going on. Really. So.
I actually would say that the card is too complicated, but that is a pretty hot take that I don't need to stand on my soapbox for during this stream.
Okay, because like most of what these cards are doing isn't anything that Wizard hasn't done already. So most of the time they're not.
Yeah, it's the combining of all the things at once is a little different. But Just going back to the boss thing, Mayo said something that I want to highlight, because that's, while we don't have a larger agreement across combat designers yet, where we've really nailed down this framework, this is kind of the philosophy that I use when thinking about the tools that players have available, and that's the difference between required and would help a lot. Previous bosses that put up shields were a lot easier if you had Pierce, but you could still get around them. And yeah, that's generally what I'm trying to do when I design bosses, and I'm sure some of our other combat designers as well, maybe that's their philosophy or they have a different one. But the outside tools are like, this would be the optimal way if that's the way that you choose, but you don't have to engage with that to get past. There is another way within the cheat tool set. And I think that's a lot of the potential in terms of our approach to combat triggers and the more puzzly style bosses, is a lot of them can be brute forced. Is you can just ignore the cheats completely and do your normal high hits and get through the puzzle, or you can figure out the puzzle and that'll help it go faster or better or various things. And so there's a different tier of difficulty there. Like Artie was talking about, the frequency of difficulty in terms of a range is that something that can be brute force, that you don't have to figure out the puzzle in order to continue, or you don't have to engage outside of the combat to solve, is going to be less difficult than something that requires you to do those things to get past it.
Multitasking like a madman right now.
Really? Why?
There's so much to do. Lots of good questions in the chat. I'm trying to answer them. I'll let Calamity decide which ones that she wants to pull out for further discussion. So
I thought I was going to breeze through Big Ben and have to come up with other gameplay to do, but
don't knock over the milk.
Going on in chat. Yeah. Gonna catch up on chat.
Okay.
Elements, team PvP.
That's interesting, watching the meta shift around a little bit.
Yeah,
see what
do you want to
happens.
go into that?
It just depends if there's a specific question about something.
I mean, I'm sure they'd be interested to hear you talk about it if you wanna.
Oh, it's just kind of interesting, just watching. I appreciate currently the school tier debate seems a lot more nebulous than previous metas. So that's ideally that's the way we would want it. So, but yeah, I'm just sort of, it'll take some time for the meta to settle down. Right now, people are finding effective strats, and then we have to give time enough for the community to detect solutions before we start actually diagnosing what's happening. We just have to give everybody time to figure it out, and then see what happens in a season or two.
Let's kick the school identity question up to.
Okay.
What about
Artie,
it?
Where's school identity? What does it mean? Where did it go? Do I need to explain the question more? I can't. But I think more players are saying, "Hey, there's no more school identity anymore." What's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Yeah, I just don't understand the question. I guess I had a conversation in public PvP Discord about that a few days ago, where the thing is that if you look at the beginning of the game, you're encouraged to use training points. You can cast spells from any school, and they actually ask you to pick a secondary school, which, as I mentioned again today, originally what Ray and I wanted is that you did officially pick a secondary school, and then that's the one you trained in. But we lost that fight, and so then it became more a training points thing. So you could spend training points on any school. Problem is that when we reached Marleybone and Beta, or Alpha maybe, combat resolution times began to get too long. And so we were looking for a way to solve that problem. Now, you have to remember, at the time, the plan was no spells above rank 7, no worlds beyond Dragonspire. That was the idea. Dragonspire was supposed to be the raid world. It had a lot of places. The custom pieces were designed for raids, and end-game content. And so, but we felt like we had to solve this combat pacing problem that happened in Marleybone. So we added Power Pips. And Power Pips, of course, lets you use higher rank spells faster, which lets you increase your damage output faster. Well, the problem with the initial implementation of the Power Pip is that it only worked on spells from your school. That meant as you're living in higher rank spells, the ability to use off-school spells was harder because it was far, far, far less efficient. The more frequently you're generating Power Pips, the more you're punished for using off-school hits. And of course, you can see, in Arc 1, there was some dual school gear as we were trying to support multi-schooling because the off schools were falling behind in stats and things like that. So it became, but then I left the company, so did Ray. And then we came back. And it appeared as if the game had begun to progress into more of a siloed thing, where people were considering the school they choose as a class, as opposed to you choose your school, which creates your base stat profile, but then you begin to pick and choose magics from any of the schools on the wheel. And so some of the things that we've done since we got back was Arch Mastery was a way we felt that corrected or improved the original mission of the Power Pip. So it doesn't impede your ability to use other school spells, which was the original intent, to use other school spells, other schools of magic. And then, we added pins to allow customizability of dual school gear, which again was an Arc 1 concept. And so school identity, I guess, is a combination of things. There's the magic school. The magic school, this has an identity. It always did. And we're just trying, but because it started to drift into more siloed things, well, now all of a sudden, each school was complaining that they didn't have the tools of the other school. But that was the intent, that you wouldn't. But because it's siloed, you have to. Otherwise, you can't function. So then what happened is there became an increasing homogenization of the school's magics. So, whether it's, different schools getting different effects that they couldn't easily access from borrowing from another school. So what we saw was a trend towards loss of identity in the magic of the school. So that's why we were looking at, making it easier for players to dip into other schools to get the effects that they wanted, that their own school magic didn't have access to. So that's we didn't make up the magic wheel. Magic wheel was there from the beginning. We didn't make up characters using spells from other schools. That was there from the beginning. I think the Power Pip initial Power Pip implementation was led to a problem, and so we're attempting to fix that and then go back and try to strengthen the identity of each school by saying this school owns this effect and its neighbors borrow that effect. And then so you start to have the library for each school becomes increasingly distinctive because that's the identity of the school's magic. And then each school's wizard has a different stat profile because that's part of the identity of the school. So anyway, the stuff we've been doing lately is really trying to strengthen the lines between the schools in terms of identity. I'm rambling again. You see what happens? You turn your back for 5 seconds, and I'm rambling again like some old guy on the corner.
It was interesting to me to hear you talk about how the original intent of the game was much more of spreading across schools. Because the way that it turned out, I mean, as you pointed out, a couple systems, it really ends up being so much more the feeling of mono school, maybe a secondary. And a lot of that is with training points, for example. You mentioned, yes, you can use that to train all schools, but with training points being so limited at the start of the game, it really becomes a choice. It's like you're probably going to choose one school, and that becomes part of who you are. And this is where I come back to the Wizard as a role-playing game instead of a CCG or a power activation. So much of the early systems like point to it being a role-playing game, and that really comes down to the school being a class, like you said, is that the game feels like it's built around pointing you towards this being your class, and this being the school is part of the wizard instead of part of the spells. But then you talk about that wasn't even the original intention. Now the game is trying to pull it back to the original intention.
Well, it's trying to do both, frankly. Yeah, it's trying to do both, and that may be where the confusion lies. Because ICE's stat profile, when you pick an ICE, your stat profile is a tank, right? That's what you are. You have high resist, high health, low damage, low DPP. As in your native school's magic. But within that, and that's what the gear template, when we revisited the gear templates, again, what the gear templates are doing is trying to emphasize this idea of versatility within your own school. Should you go towards Storm for more damage output? You could go into Life to go with more mitigation and tanking abilities. And then it does become a role. What role do you want to play? Do you want to pick high damage gear or high tanking gear? Do you want to focus your deck construction on tanking spells or on damage spells? Ice will never be meet the damage output of Storm or Fire. But by the same token, that's the role they're playing, right? They're playing more of a damage role. So it's really trying to do a bit of both, where your class is going to be your stat profile based on the school you've picked. But the game was always intended to give access to a lot of different spells so that you could customize how that character plays. Like if you're a tank, am I a paladin, or am I a rage tank, or what type of tank do I want to play? And in this case, it's like Ice is a resist tank, Life is a healing tank, is a health tank, And so that's kind of where it tries to do a bit of both. But yeah, like I said, when I left, we were trying to support that balance. And then when I came back, it was becoming more siloed. But then, like I said, you see a lot of things in sort of that post Arc 1, early Arc 2 design that's attempting to homogenize things. Like the lore DPP was attempting to homogenize things, bringing Storm down, moving Ice up. Shadow DPP, same thing. And then when I got here, the biggest complaint was, Storm needs a dot. And the biggest complaints are Life and Death need 4-pip AoEs. And, it's like any sort of deficiency that a school had in its own repertoire was being pushed for, which really just kind of lessens the identity of the schools, in my opinion, at least. And so it's really trying to do both of the things that you're describing. Anyhow,
Yeah, they're talking more about it in terms of spell exclusivity as well. Now that
Right.
most spells are trained by.
Well, which was weird to me. Like when we were, what's that?
I can't hear Claire at all. Artie's nice and loud. Claire is really soft. I'm not sure if it's just me. Really quiet.
Can you hear me, Artie?
Yeah.
Lower and lower as the stream goes on.
Oh man.
It's all right. I mean, yes, you need a blowhorn, a bullhorn. Yeah, that was what was odd to us, is I guess, is that as we looked at Art 2, is they're all exclusive, and you know, I do think that there should be a mix, and we just have to come up with the right mix. But the idea that there's no cross trainability, nobody wants that. Believe me, nobody wants that. No one wants balance, only casting balance spells. No one wants to lose elemental blades and traps, and nobody wants Faint to only be on death. Believe me, nobody wants Tower Shield only be on ice. So, you know, that's not what people are asking for. So I don't know that it's clear where, you know, again, it became something where Wizard began to trend a direction away from its original design, and I think people have learned to engage with it, this multi-schooling, in a way that they're comfortable, and then at some point it becomes this. At some point, the siloing of schools became the norm, I suppose, and you know, we had a lot of debates as to why. Why did that happen? And, you know, I don't know if we had any great answers, frankly. All right, hold on. I got to collect the bird. Flew off. I'll be right back.
It should have been a spell that everyone got because its importance in battles. What if just no one got it instead? If you had never had it, would you miss it? If Faint didn't exist? If there wasn't a trap that went above 30% or something? Already left to do pet training.
It's been a long time since we've looked at the spell evaluation on Faint, but I do recall it being OP.
I'm sure it is. It causes us a lot of problems when trying to design bosses.
It's funny because we do see the players from time to time go off about getting rid of some of these legacy spells that are too overpowered, right? I think Earthquake was the last thing the players, oh, Earthquake is too good. I'm not talking about PvE. Don't freak out, PvE. Yeah, we'll see how long it takes for them to get to Faint. Never? Guessing never.
That's why I say if it never existed, easier. Just so many things that it's too late now. Is that would you have even questioned it if there was never a trap above 30% before?
Yeah, it might be interesting. I'd be curious to do a little bit of archaeology in the project files to see when Faint was added compared to other spells. Like, I wonder if that big buff was added to address a particular problem.
See, there's Bird.
If you're going to look at the decisions of the past decade, I'd argue the biggest mistake was having mob fights be 2v1. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, and Gary and I tried to fix that, and the community lost their mind, so we turned it back. That was one of the times that was like early in, I guess, where I was like, why is this?
Get 1v1 and it slowed down quest completion so much that players got upset about it.
Yeah, okay. You know, I don't know. We tried, But the problem is like what we came into was essentially there were a lot of kind of deviations from sort of, and it's not that like mistakes were made with the original design. Mistakes are made with all designs. So it's an iterative process. You try something, you do your best with the information you have, and try to make the best decision at the time. Some things work, some things don't, and then you try to make adjustments. Part of the problem is that it had been 10 years. And so people are really used to how it works. And what they didn't want was anybody messing with it. And, we learned it and we backed it off. But part of it is that 2v1, that's a problem. But then AoEs are just too powerful. We know that. But again, what happens is that the game kind of, it turns into kind of a power activation game, I suppose. But that's not something that we're going to fix because people enjoy that, and so that's cool. I think it's. I mean, people like what they like. That's okay. At the same time, there are people that might be looking for something more akin to a card game, and there's a lot of challenges there with how Wizards Combat works, the rules of Wizards Combat, which don't align with a lot of CCGs and things, and so we're attempting to work within that. But anyway, that's something we were trying to address, but just community didn't care for it.
AoEs are the go-to for mob fights, and the boss fights are where we use our single target spells. And that should be reversed, in my opinion, says Bandit. Interesting.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we may, I don't know, what I would like to say is that we will experiment with the composition of our content moving forward. There's risks to that, though. The standard Nightmare Dungeon reaction notwithstanding, that's a perfect example of we tried something in response to community requests for dungeons and missed the mark. But then, how tolerant is the community to those mistakes? Probably it's related to how we react to them. So, So let's see. Are there any questions?
Looking for questions.
Like I played through Arc 1 recently, and I felt the Arch Mastery pips really made it the play experience a lot better for me. A lot more interesting, because then I could do, I was what was I playing? Myth. And so, I would do my Spirit Blade or whatever, and I could use one of the other two blades more easily.
Oh, I saw this one earlier and I wanted to answer it. Why don't PvE bosses have higher health? We used to see much higher health, but now in Wallaroo it's less. We changed our method for how mob stats were calculated for Wallaroo. We used a new method that was based off of the player stats, and was generally more consistent. In previous worlds, it had been kind of more of a feelings-based decision in terms of how high the mob health would be. And this one, it was actually mathematically calculated in relation to the player stats and how many rounds we expected that combat to take to then be able to greater predict the overall world time. So we'll continue to be looking at that and how it goes over in future content, because This is like the template, so now we can vary it up for where we need to.
Wait, what's the answer on school identity accepted by the group?
Well, I don't know if I mean, the answer could be accepted. I think the fundamental disagreement of where it all comes from going to stand.
Yeah, I guess, what does the player lose by having spells cross-trainable? Maybe just the feeling of exclusivity?
Yes, it's the feeling of exclusivity because at one point I felt special for having something that another player did not have. Especially in the way that we connect it to the lore, is that when you learn these spell quest spells, for example, you are going on a journey to connect with this creature that is related to your school history and everything. And so the lore too creates that feeling of, I get this specifically because of the investment I have put in my school so far, and now someone can just go over and click a button and they have the same spell. The feeling loss of specialness in relation to the character and the character's relationship with the world.
So then, like, spells with no spell quest, that wouldn't bother people. Because I do think that there should be some exclusivity.
I think it's definitely more from the spell quests, but that exclusivity just exists regardless if there's a physical world connection or not.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think if that exclusivity is appropriate for the game we have.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like it, but maybe.
It is from the Wizard as a role-playing game perspective, which not everyone shares, but some people do.
Well, but not from the original experience. The original experience. Oh, I guess the spell quest. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. I got you. That's why I was saying if we could categorize it as like a spell quest spell, and then that becomes exclusive, that becomes sort of a dividing line where it may be understandable. And then we could pay attention to what ability or what effects those exclusive spells have. Because again, like if the idea is, as it was sort of originally, was that you would have access to the properties of another magics, presumably to solve problems or to play the way you'd like or enjoy or whatever. And then we would just have to be careful about what those are.
Yeah, I think the hits are much more, the hitting spells, the pure damage spells are much, at least originally pure damage spells before Path Bs, are going to be much closer to those ties in terms of the specialness relation because of things like the spell quest, the connections to the lore and all that, the animation and the cinematic with everything, the drama of it all, rather than the utility spells. I think having the utility spells be cross-trainable across different schools is much more forgiving than maybe like keeping to my central damage spells, which would mostly work except for the stat problem of damage if you're going into a different school for damage, is you need to have access to their hitting spells for that, or to hit around weaknesses or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a different way to I mean, we're talking about something for fall that might help introduce some exclusivity at least.
Probably. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see does anybody have a banger last question before we go.
Sure, do Kylie's.
Which one?
Looking for
Are
it.
you guys focused on the remaining player base, or are you doing something to entice people who quit to come back and play the game again? Like, how do you convince them to come back? That sounds relevant.
Right. I guess should I answer each one independently? Are we focused on the remaining player base? Yes, but not exclusively so. The spring gauntlet or the spring update would be evidence of that. So the Portal Apparel is open to what? What did we end up doing? Making it accessible to? Was it 30 and above? So 30 and above. So that's not only targeted to remaining players. Quest Friend Finder, which we'll probably shine a brighter light on in the future, but Quest Friend Finder was created to allow players who are in the middle worlds, make it easier for them to find questing partners. And so that's not for end of content people. Just it's for people who are, maybe questing for the first time or kind of whatever. We have a lot of things in fall targeting newer players. So no, wait, where's the rest? Wait, I lost it now. What's the second question? I mean, obviously the worlds take a massive amount of our resources, and those are targeted to the remaining players. So it's not like, I'd say a majority of our effort goes to the current player base, but then we also have initiatives to help newer players. And what's that? Oh, yeah. Well, that was something that Ben and I discussed early on, and we discussed today. Like, what would be the reason why someone quits a game? Well, it might be because they don't really care for the gameplay. So if somebody left, it might have been because they didn't care for what Wizard kind of became at some point in the progression. Who knows where, And so that is in part why we felt like advanced combat and an advanced combat experience that was more akin to has more qualities of a normal CCG, which is what Wizard is marketed as, might get people interested again. I mean, it's a long process. Like Ben says, it is really difficult to kind of begin to layer features onto an existing live service. But that is one reason why we wanted to do it, because we had to believe that some percent of the people who left because they didn't enjoy where Wizard was going. And when you get your 4-pip AoE, and then towards the end of Arc 1, the game starts to feel like you're being punished for using a variety of spells. And instead, it begins to seem like the correct path is really doing fewer spells. And so if someone's feeling that, or someone's experiencing that, and they're not enjoying the lack of diversity in spell usage and things like that, then that might be a reason why they quit. And so that's part of that. Beast Moon was designed specifically to possibly bring people back in again, for people who kind of want a more traditional card experience, maybe something not as complex, and also something that requires teamwork. So that was something, because really it's like, if someone's quit your game, it's hard to entice them back with the same thing that they left in the first place. So that's why I was thinking, when I was charged with Beast Moon before, the charge was, it's got to be a win-back thing. I'm like, well, if they left, they pretty much had rejected everything you've already offered them, so I've got to offer them something different. Otherwise, there's no, why would they come back at that point? So anyway, just offering them, different, interesting ways to engage with a CCG, cinematic card game, RPG, and maybe advanced is that. So for some.
All right, Cam, sing us off.
Sing us off.
Bye, everyone.
That's the best mix that I've heard, Sparrow.
Yeah.